Before we get started with today's podcast, we'd like to ask returning listeners to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast platform, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you really enjoy it, share a link to this podcast with friends or family who would enjoy hearing our weekly discussions about basketball and basketball culture. Now, on to the show.
Yeah, isn't it amazing when Michigan can keep this game to a 19-foot, 9-inch game inside that three-point line? It's all there. Nice move by Steve Fisher here. Turn it into the 19-9.
Welcome to the 99 Podcast by HVS. I'm Josh Barnett, and today I'm checking in from the offices of Slam Magazine and 5-Star Basketball in New York. My guests today are Peter Robert Casey, PRC, and Carl Bloom from 5-Star.
Yo.
And then I have the editor-in-chief of Slam Magazine here, Adam Figman.
What's up?
Welcome to the podcast, guys. I appreciate you guys coming.
Welcome to New York City.
It's hot in here, man.
It's only beginning.
So, number one, we really appreciate you guys having us down here, and we have a little bit of a connection with Slam on the advertising side, and then we've done some stuff with 5-Star through the last year or so too, and we really appreciate being a part of that, and it's a lot of fun. And Carl, we appreciate you paying so promptly, like you're amazing on the payments, brother.
Slow that down, Carl. Come on, man.
Compared to our other clients, we're like, man, we know that 5-Star check is coming.
We really like the shirts. That's all it is.
Well, we appreciate it. So I wanted to kind of break this podcast down into 3 parts. And the first part was just kind of getting to understand your guys' love for basketball and kind of what brought you here to these different sports or basketball entities, so to speak. So, Adam, since you're to my left, I'm just going to start with you, and then we'll just make our way down.
That works. Wow, I've been a basketball fan for probably literally my entire life. Grew up outside of New York City on Long Island, so longtime Knicks fan, suffering Knicks fan. This is the only way to be a Knicks fan. But yeah, I mean, I played as a kid, elementary school, middle school, wasn't even good enough to play high school, but loved it. So I was playing every day after school, was just a huge part of my life. Went to college, was just a mega fan. Graduated college, didn't know what I wanted to do for a living. It was when LeBron was making his decision. So LeBron, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, all of that. Just realized I was putting so much effort into following the game and being a fake GM and wishing I ran the Knicks so I could convince LeBron to come to New York. And I decided I wanted to go into basketball as a career in some capacity. So yeah, I mean, every step of the way, honestly.
That's dope. So as editor-in-chief at Slam, and you've done that for how long now?
3.5 years.
Okay, so 3.5 years. Where'd you go to college, if you don't mind?
Lehigh University.
Okay, and then what did you study?
Journalism.
So journalism.
Yeah.
And then coming out, you got your first job here at Slam? Or
so I graduated college 2010, knew I wanted to do something in media world, was really into music also, so like freelance writing wherever I could. At the time, Slam's office was actually in the same office as Double XL magazine, rap magazine, which I wanted to be in the basketball world, but I also loved hip hop and rap music. And the idea of being a professional writer where I could go to concerts and go on tour, that was also super exciting to me. So the idea of interning at Slam kind of came up, and I was just looking at magazine mastheads and trying to figure out what the move was. And I was like, well, Slam is in the same office as Double XL. So maybe if Slam doesn't work, I could just find an in at Double XL. It's like the office was literally like 30 feet away, maybe even less. You could just, lob a baseball and hit half the Double XL staff from the Slam office.
Right.
So I was like, all right, let me go over there, and then I'll figure it out, and maybe I could cross over. People were going back and forth from Double XL to Slam all the time. So it just made sense. I was like a logical kind of jumping off point. But yeah, I worked for free out of school for a while until I could kind of get my foot in the door.
Sure. Proud subscriber of both of those magazines.
Yeah.
A lot of other shit too. You just keep bringing up magazines. I'm like, oh yeah, I subscribe to that shit too.
Yeah. Yeah.
PRC, how about you?
Not to damper the mood here, but I kind of fell in love with basketball through tragic circumstances. When I was 9 years old, my sister passed away very abruptly and unexpectedly. And baseball, believe it or not, was my first love. But basketball, I was fortunate. Grew up in Brooklyn, New York on the southeast side, and we had a little patch of asphalt in my yard, and kind of turned to the game as an outlet to deal with those emotions. As a 9-year-old, my parents sent me to counseling. I didn't want to relive that experience. And basketball kind of allowed me to just escape from that reality. And through the process of just getting better, of wanting to get better, fell in love with, training and doing drills and skill development in my yard, and just became like a full-in junkie. And so I was one of those players, I talked about this earlier before the pod started. I went to 5-star basketball camp 3 summers in a row, 96 through 98.
Dope.
And I always joke with people that I went to 5-star as an unranked and unrecruited prospect, and I left 5-star as an unranked and unrecruited prospect.
But with a lot more respect behind your name.
Yeah, that orange and white shirt on the playground always got a look. Like, people had a nod of respect, just that you went there, you survived 5-star. It was, it was a boot camp.
Sure.
Every kid, from the suburbs wanted to go play against the top kids in the country. In the 90s, you did that at 5-star, and that all manifested into a Division III basketball experience. Like, that was the payoff for me.
Right. So when you were at 5-star in those 3 years,
3 summers.
3
yes.
summers, right? So when you were there, drop a few names for us of who you were up against.
Oh, it was great. I mean, Jason Williams, who went on to Duke.
Yeah.
And now he's at ESPN fame as a broadcaster.
He's out of New Jersey, right?
Yeah, Metuchen, New Jersey. He went to St. Joe's.
Yeah.
And he, at the time, was the number 1 ranked point guard, possibly number 1 ranked prospect in his class. And it was during the live period. So Coach K followed him from court to court. And the story goes, without saying, Coach K was like, he would watch him during 5-stars known for their stations. Basically, those are like the rudimentary fundamentals of the game. And just watching Jason Williams' body language, did he buy in? Did he, not be too cool for school during these stations? But anyway.
Who gives a shit, Coach? Like, Duke can ball.
The Duke can ball. But it was him. It was Troy Murphy, who had a long legacy in the league.
Notre Dame.
My bunk counselor was Ron Artest.
Nice.
And God, Sham God.
Yes.
So I learned how to do the sham. I brought sham to a very small upstate town. I had kids falling all over themselves playing defense. So
Okay, I have 2 questions for you. Number 1, and this might be more for Adam. I'm gonna put you on the spot, maybe, hopefully not, because I think I know the answer. But Jason Williams was the Slam Diary, right? His senior year
of high school.
Yes.
I think he. Oh man,
I think he was.
He might have been. See, he was either a high school diarist or a rookie diarist, because we had a rookie diary back in the day also.
I remember.
And I think he might have been rookie and not high school.
Him through
high school.
Yeah, I'm
Was he graduated 02?
He was my class, 99.
99.
Yeah,
Oh
99.
wow, I'm way off. Okay, that sounds right.
99 stand up.
go.
That sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right. I'll have to double
that's
check
crazy.
that later. Don't hold me to that.
That's crazy.
It's a little before my era as editor-in-chief.
Right.
I think I
Yeah,
was 11 years old in 1999.
So my second question, I'm going to throw it back to you, PRC. Why is God Shammgod so loved in this area?
Yeah, well, he had the nastiest handle anyone ever seen that came through.
It's still legendary, right?
Still
you got
legendary.
Shammgod, right?
He went to LaSalle Academy, which is on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, small private Catholic school, plays in the famous New York City Catholic League, and he played with Ron Artest. I mean, talk about 2 formidable high school talents. Ron went to St.
Imagine
John's.
running up against that group.
Yeah, and then they had a secondary point guard to play behind him. This guy, we were talking about him last night. His name was Von Damian Green. We called him Muggsy Green, who's no taller than 5'8", lightning quick point guard. So you have him and Sham in the backcourt. You have Ron in the front court, and they're just dominant in New York City. So he gets a lot of love just because he did moves that no one had ever seen before with the basketball. So.
And we have Providence licensing coming. I'm wearing the unreleased Providence shirt right now, and I thought maybe we get a picture and then I'll throw it on social media and watch the Providence people go nuts over it because they're already all over my ass.
Yes.
But we might have some Shammgod shorts coming down the line too, which would be pretty cool to kind of bring those
One
back.
more Shammgod story. So 96 NCAA tournament, Providence versus Arizona, is where he actually busted out the Shammgod right to left.
Yeah.
And he got fouled on the play. He missed the basket. But
It didn't matter, though.
I had that game recorded on VHS, And I rewound it at least 17 times. Like, what did he just do? And it was the sham.
Only the class of '99 knows about VHSs. These young bucks in here don't know about it, do they?
You got to find this. There's a mixtape, a legendary mixtape of PRC. Okay. Not a lot of people know about it. It's classic. It's like his high school highlights. Maybe college? High school. And he busts out the sham in a game. It's sick. Unlike anything I've ever seen.
I wish I could tell you that, like, now that the cat's out of the bag, but I don't think anybody listens to this anyway. So. Keep that. Hey, when we make it
at least you guys need to know about
Keep
this.
it in the
when
archives.
we make it big, I'll replay this and we'll get it out there. So, Carl, I'm gonna throw it over to you. We were talking a little bit off air, and you were talking more about the baseball stuff. And what you did with that. And playing in the Frontier League for a little while with Traverse City.
Yeah, that's right.
How did you end up on the basketball side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I came from a sports family. My dad would bring me to Nets games as a little kid, and that was like, I want to say 2001, 2004. I was like, 6 to 10 years old for those years, and those Nets teams with Jason Kidd, Kenyon Martin, Richard Jefferson, and that's definitely when I fell in love with basketball. I'm still in love with basketball. But I went on to play baseball in college, and then I was in grad school, and I'm looking for an internship because part of my grad school thing, you have to get an internship to graduate. And I started talking to this guy named Joe Sandberg, and we're all at JDS Sports, is the holding company. It's technically where I work, but Joe Sandberg was investing in these really cool things like technology, sports media, these things for a 23-year-old kid. It was very exciting. So my baseball career is winding up. I'm trying to turn that page and enter the professional world. And this just was a really exciting opportunity for me to go intern. And five-star basketball happened to be one of the things in the portfolio. So for me, it was like coming back to basketball. And now people that talk to me, I was always a baseball first guy. But if you talk to me now, it's probably the other way where I'm very focused on basketball.
Yeah, that's dope. That's interesting. So in your time here in these offices and working since you had the internship and stuff, what's been like the coolest memory that you've had in your time here? Sorry to put you on the spot like that.
Oh, no doubt. There's been a lot of really cool things. I think I was kind of starstruck at first because, a 23-year-old kid when I started, Slam and JDS Sports, we're doing a lot of really cool things. But we just had something come to a peak this past week where we acquired the rights to A Kid from Coney Island, a documentary on Stephon Marbury. And originally, the stuff I was doing here, I didn't really know that it was going to go in this direction where we were going to be acquiring films and putting on movie premieres and doing all this other stuff that's so much fun. But that's kind of the way things went, and I try and just lend a hand wherever I can. And there was an opportunity to help out with the movie premiere, and I was able to get really involved and help set that up. And it was a really good night. It was a little nerve-wracking, getting all these people into one building, and a lot of these celebrities. Kevin Durant was there, Stephon Marbury was there. It was really, really cool. But yeah, I think that was the most exciting thing so far.
And for our listeners who weren't privy to the conversation before this, I looked at these guys that are sitting at the table with me. I'm like, hey, have you guys seen that movie, Kid from Coney Island yet? And they're all like, no, yeah, we also made that shit. So kind of just going around the table here as far as my basketball story goes, because it kind of relates to you, Adam, and then it relates to you too, PRC. I was able to play, obviously, in high school. But afterwards, after intramurals and stuff and pickup ball, old man pickup ball, we're old now, but you look better than I do, but we're getting old.
We are old.
It was about scratching that itch, in 99, it's kind of allowed me to focus and keep my energy in basketball and kind of like never grow up and grow out of that stuff. And so you just pour so much like of your heart and soul into the shit that it just becomes your identity. And I've always like kind of considered basketball part of my identity, who I was. And then I had a tragic passing too, not as close as a family member, but my best friend Wes Atterbury passed away of melanoma when he was 28, left behind a kid, a wife and stuff. But before he passed, we were talking, he was like, Barnett, you got to do something in basketball. Like, it's like, it always just kind of rings like, he's like, you just have to do something. Like, I talk to you all the time, and the only thing you're capable about talking about is basketball. So motherfucker, you need to find something in basketball. So that's just kind of bring it back full circle. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So let's move on to the second part, and this kind of focuses more on slam. So a lot of this stuff kind of be directed to you, Adam, but everybody's free to chime in. And PRC, I know that you and I have talked about this in the past, but growing up as a 5'10" white dude in southern Indiana, which is like a stone's throw away from Kentucky, but we would never claim that. But you can probably hear it in my voice. Slam kind of just opened up the whole basketball landscape, to us. And it was like this thing that just happened where my mom bought a magazine for me, and it was for a vacation ride, down to Florida. And I just opened it up, and it was so like ahead of its time. But I think for like people our age, especially PRC, pre-internet days, it was like a culture magazine. And it was just this powerful thing. But it's how I learned about Tracy McGrady. It's how I learned about Ron Mercer. I learned about all these dudes. And that and Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style were probably like the two biggest like impacts on me, because we just weren't that cultured down in southern Indiana, and I know I'm not alone in that. But I was wondering if you guys could share your first memories of Slam Magazine, or kind of how you came. In PRC, we've talked about it before, but I want you to repeat your story too when we get back to you. But I'll start with Adam again.
I want to hear PRC's. Mine's, I don't have a very specific like single moment where I started tuning in. I was a subscriber as a kid. Probably started either early high school or late middle school era, 7th, 8th, 9th grade. Subscribed through high school, probably stopped subscribing in college when I would just pick it up here and there on the newsstand. Also was reading it through college, like online. So Lang Whitaker, Ben Osborne, Khalid, Marcel, these guys ran the website probably between 2007 and 10. I probably picked up on the website more 08, 09-ish. And then that's kind of what put it on the radar for me as just like a media entity that existed on the internet with the hoops hypes and obviously ESPN. I'm trying to think of what other websites I consumed in college. Bunch of message boards. This is like right pre-Twitter or very early Twitter. That's kind of what established it as like a thing for me when I left college. That was just an opportunity. That was just a thing in New York City that I should probably look into.
Is there a specific cover that sticks out to you?
I would say the first one that taught me what Slam was the same cover that almost everyone mentions, which is the Iverson joint, with the fro. That was 98. Yeah. I was, 10 or 11 at the time, so it didn't really resonate with me in the same way it would have if I was 13, 14, or 15. But that's the one that I remember like, oh, this is a huge popular culture thing that I don't really understand yet.
Sure.
And then as I got older, when I was in high school, I remember all the LeBron covers, honestly. The one that really sticks out is when I was probably a freshman in high school, 03, his rookie cover where he's wearing the Jordan throwback.
Yeah.
That meant a lot to me. And then like a little later, the following year, 04, there was a Carmelo cover, his first cover where he's in a Nuggets jersey. Just that era is really what pulled me in. Because even as a basketball fan, that's the era where I really turned it up. I was in 9th, 10th grade. It was 03, 04, Melo, Wade, LeBron, Chris Paul. A little later Chris Paul, but like that's what really like sucked me into the game from a cultural perspective.
Gotcha. Yeah. PRC?
Winter 94. Just
It's not real specific, is it?
not specific at all.
I was like, it was sometime within the early 2000s. You're like July 27th, 1994.
It was 7:36 a.m.
Yeah, I'll never forget it. We just moved out of Brooklyn, and we went from the burbs to the country, kind of like southern Indiana, it sounds like. And when you're 14 years old and you move out to the country, you need a driver's license to get anywhere and everywhere. And at 14, you're relying on mom and dad taking you places. So anyway, it's noticeably colder when you move from Brooklyn upstate by 10 degrees, and we were expecting a giant winter storm one weekend. And one of my first friends from upstate was a New York Knicks basketball junkie like me. We were playing NBA Live, like fucking staying up all night playing NBA Live. My mom's like, yo, before they shut everything down, I'm going to the grocery store. What can I get you? Junk food, soda, anything to help us play video games. And if they have a magazine, grab a magazine, basketball. She already knew I was this one-dimensional dude, basketball only at this point. And she comes home with the Larry Johnson cover, premiere issue number 1. And I'm holding this thing, and my buddy's not as interested in it as I am. And I'm like, what is this? Like you said, it was the intersection of hip-hop culture and basketball, but written in a voice that was so universal, so different than Hoop Magazine or Inside Stuff, which was so corny and buttoned up. And I was hooked in to the point where I never subscribed because I didn't want a label on my magazine.
Right.
So I'd go bodegas in the city, upstate, supermarkets, whatever it took to get that issue without the label. So I had the first 100 issues, but was hooked in from that very first day.
Do you still have them?
Yeah, I was about to ask the same thing.
Oh, sorry.
I am very ashamed to admit this, but in college, I kind of, like Adam mentioned, I wasn't in the slam loop anymore on the print side. I would go to the website, and I took the first 100 issues. This was the birth of eBay. And I sold it to some dude in Germany.
Wow.
The whole first stack of 100 issues.
Like that dude
man.
is just sitting there in Germany. He still got it. Probably did something dope as shit.
I thought I was a genius. Here I was like the early days of e-commerce.
Right.
Probably one of the biggest regrets of my life.
Let me ask you this, because I was on eBay the same
You
time.
might have bought it, bro.
I wasn't in Germany. But I was on eBay the same time. You had to wait for a check to come in, didn't you? Before you sent it.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, no, it was paper
Had to
check.
be.
There was no PayPal.
So you just mail a check if you bought something, or you wait for a check.
Yeah, this is long before Venmo. It was a paper check. I'm not going to risk mailing the stack until the money's cleared.
I remember all that shit. Like, my wife saw my eBay thing. She was like, "You've been a member since '99." I'm like, "No, I've been buying shit since '99."
Power user since '99.
Carl, you have a slam story for us?
See, I'm a little different. I was born in '95, so I'm a little bit younger, and
I feel like you guys keep rubbing that in our face.
I do. I definitely work that in when I can. But even as a big basketball fan, I feel like I kind of missed the print media days. So I was very aware of slam, but having like that experience where I was holding it in my hand and smart enough to really know what was going on, I don't really have that. But I have a little bit different of a vantage point and a little different of an experience where I came into this, JDS Sports, and obviously Slam is the center of our universe. And I got to like retroactively look back at it and experience basketball. Because for me, going through the archive, it's like my childhood.
Sure.
And a lot of those things I couldn't really remember. So it's like touching up on some of my memories, like, oh crap, like that really happened. Like, there's all these kinds of stories, like the Stephon Marbury, all the stuff that's going on with Stephon Marbury. I was there, I was a little kid for, but I needed to watch that documentary to really remind myself about all those things that I was there for. So the Slam magazine's kind of been like that for me. And then it's really fun being in the room with these guys and talking about how you can change that experience and all that's left there in the history and get creative with it today.
Yeah. So the Iverson cover. That I knew that somebody would say it, right? Somebody would bring that up as their favorite cover. But I have a personal one for my personal collection.
Oh, the first Iverson cover.
The first Iverson cover.
This is kind of rare.
Yeah.
At the time, even at the time, I heard we were talking about this the other day. This didn't sell well at all at the time. It was just because.
But you had regional coverage.
It was the first ever college cover.
Sure, but you also, do you know the other one that you guys had? Same magazine?
Stackhouse?
No,
One
UCLA,
Stack.
right?
Yeah. It was Charles O'Bannon.
Yeah.
So, like, remember I sent you that email, like, hey, if you guys have us up, like, I will probably steal shit from you guys. You remember that? You remember that email?
Of course.
I'm on the hunt for the Charles O'Bannon cover somewhere.
Yeah. But when you have an audience that buys NBA stuff over and over and over, then you feed them a college thing, it's just going to do worse. It's just how it goes. So
I bought this off of eBay maybe 3 or 4 years ago because I never had the opportunity to buy it. I don't think, when it first released. But that one was crazy to me. And then. Shit, I kind of lost my spot there.
You just went down a nostalgia rabbit hole. That's
yeah,
why.
no doubt. The one that I had was not the first cover. So you had the LJ cover, and that's where our story differed a little bit because I had the Kemp cover, which was number 2 right after it. And so getting ready for this trip, like I neglected my kids for a good 3 hours down in the basement, and they're like, "Dad, come play with us." Like, what are you doing? I'm like, I gotta find the Sean Kemp cover, guys. Like,
you got important things to do.
Dad's got work to do. Like, stop asking me shit. Like, I got find. Couldn't find it, man. Still bugged me. Like, I'm still in the plane on the way here, like wrapping my head around, like, where could that Kemp cover be, man? So that's how powerful Slam is, and that's how ate up I was. And then you guys are responsible for doing the Kicks version. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of, and I might be putting words in your mouth here, but I think that was the first real special edition covers that you guys did with Slam, because it was 98 when the first Kicks came out, and I have it right here. It's the KG.
Yeah, there was so our first Michael Jordan hour, as if I was there. The first Slam special issue. It might have been the first issue of Kicks, but there was also
the 100% Mike.
100% Mike.
Yeah.
Which was maybe 90, similar era,
it
98.
Was right in that time.
Yeah. So this is the first issue of Kicks. This is summer 98 basically.
Right.
It's a similar time period, but yeah, that started in 98, and I think we're on 20. I don't do the math. Yeah, it's still going though.
It's
20,
crazy.
It might be 21.
21.
Remember the 20th?
No, 20th was a couple of years ago.
Right,
We did 20 covers.
You're right.
Then we did KD. Then we did Giannis. So coming up would be 23.
And the shoes is such a part of the culture and such a part of just basketball in general. But it's a big part of what you guys do here at Slam too. Not just the Kicks magazines, but the Jordan editions that we were talking about. Mm-hmm. And then you guys even published a book, the 25 Shoes That Changed the Game or Changed Basketball. That's a Slam publication too, correct?
Yeah, that sounds right. There was Ben Osborne, who's a former editor-in-chief, edited. I don't remember the exact title.
Scoop
had a book.
No, Scoop had Sole Provider.
Yep. And then
dope,
Ben edited a book under the Kicks brand, Slam Kicks brand. That was basketball sneakers that changed the game.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, that was probably 2015-ish.
Yeah,
14-ish. Yeah.
So I guess my lead-in question to that is, why do sneakers play such a big role in just basketball in general? Obviously, we have to play in something, but from a fashion, side of things, what is it? What is it with basketball shoes?
It obviously predates me. I think you could bring that one back to the early Jordan years and Spike Lee and Do the Right Thing and just the way that it kind of made a cultural impact. But the thing with basketball sneakers is you can wear them every minute of the day and it works, right? You can't do that with hockey skates or baseball cleats or football cleats. So everyone wants to be like their famous athlete, their favorite athletes, but it's more possible in basketball physically than it is in the other sports. You can just rock Jordans with jeans and they go together fine. So I think with that as the foundation, the very smart folks over at Nike and Adidas and Converse, et cetera, have built onto that and then just created this massive industry. And then they've limited supply, which has created a lot of demand and really played with the economics of it that just turned this industry into a juggernaut.
So, PRC, I got a question for you. Do you ever get kind of pissed that Kanye gets credit for rocking the Jordan 1s with, some jeans at Paris Fashion Week, and then everybody's like, oh, you can wear basketball sneakers with jeans when we were probably doing it for 20 years before that?
Yeah, I think it's been going on for a long, long time. And actually, I remember I was in 4th grade when sneaker culture really started hitting, and sneakers hit that $100 price point, which it had never done before. Like Reebok, the OG Reebok pumps.
That's when everybody's parents' heads exploded. I'm not paying $100.
Yeah, one pair of those a year kind of a thing. But then the next sneaker would drop the next month, and you're like, Mom, I need this. You don't need this. But it was a real thing. And I think, basketball, the reason why players are always easily identifiable is they're not wearing a lot of equipment. And so jerseys, shorts, and then their kicks. So they're fully exposed all the time. And like Adam said, they're the first things you can wear off the court, too. Right. I mean, it's not on trend right now, but there was a long period of time where basketball courts, you can rock them, like you said, to the club.
Well, down in southern Indiana, we're 15 years behind the fashion curve. So, it's still cool to us. We can still do it. You New York guys might not be able to get away with it here, but we'll rock the shit out of that down in Evansville. So. But hey, thanks for the heads up, though. Carl, you have a favorite pair growing up?
You know what's funny is so we just had this movie premiere I'm talking about, and my thought is movie premiere. I've never been to one before, but I'd imagine that's something you dress nice too, and you put on a good pair of shoes, nice pair of slacks, maybe a blazer, and that's what I did, and kind of like you're going to like a wedding type of thing. And I showed up and I was looking around and I was like, I got to get on my sneaker game. That's the style. That's what dressing nice is. And I think that it's cool that that's acceptable. I think I've been some places where, if you're wearing slacks and you got Jordans on, people are like, oh, what's up with that guy? That guy doesn't get it. And I'm glad that the world is spinning in a direction, and I'm working in a place where people are creative with what they're wearing, and I got to get on that a little bit better.
Yeah, that's funny because I have no suits, no nothing. I'm just straight basketball. Still, I'm 40, and funeral, heaven forbid somebody dies. Every time I walk out of the room, my wife is like, "You're wearing that." I'm like, "Hey, you don't know, a pickup game might break out." Bitch.
You might have to dunk on somebody.
Only one ready.
Yeah, that's right.
So getting back to the special editions that you guys do, and it's kind of my last question on the Slam front, and then we can get more into the 5-star stuff before we wrap it up here. Is the top 100, the college one that you guys did last year, was super dope. Obviously, right up 99's alley. PRC gave us the opportunity to add.
Are you going to yell at me about our ranking?
No, I'm not. I did in a previous pod. I called in to question some of that stuff. That's not what this is about. The next time I come back, if you guys agree,
I'll give you Peter Robert Casey's phone number.
I've got it. I'll blow him up.
Yeah. He was heavily involved.
But obviously, it's so hard to rank eras.
Yeah.
It's impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And then our debate was kind of, are you going off individual? Are you going off team accomplishments? Is there a combination there?
Right.
And PRC, I know you did some of the writings in there too, because when you asked me to add, I think the first question I asked was only if Steve Alford is ranked somewhere in that goddamn magazine, and if he's not, we're out or something like that. So we were privy to a little of that information coming out first. But what did you guys, just real quick, to touch on this, what did you guys kind of weigh heaviest in the rankings?
You kind of nailed it. It's everything. It's the player as an individual, their legacy in terms of accomplishments, how many championships, Final Fours, wins, impact. There's kind of an intangible impact / legacy category that you really can't, there's no number on that. You can't rank that out of 5 or something like that. If you know it, and if you name 2 players, I can tell you who has a stronger college legacy. You just know it.
Right.
And you can disagree, and that's fine. Right. So it's kind of all of those things, and then you just really throw all the names on a piece of paper, and you probably wind up with about 180 or 200 names, and then you slowly cross names off the list, and then you have 100 names, and then you slowly yell at each other until you have an order that you guys, 5 or 6 or 7 people in the room can feel semi good about. And then we also kind of we polled a bunch of people who sent us in rankings that we factored in. So Jay Billis and a few other guys contributed, and respect names with credibility in the college basketball space. So we factored that in, and we just kind of took a big average of it all.
So to kind of piggyback on that, because it leads into my next question, is start to finish on something like this from you guys at Slam. When did you start? When did you finish? What kind of time frame are you on that as far as pulling everybody, getting it together, getting graphics together, getting the copy done, etc.? Can you kind of walk us through that a little bit?
Whole thing probably a month.
Which is that's incredible.
Decision that it's going to be made, meeting about the list, a few other meetings about the list that I won't even mention that are just, kind of happen sporadically through the whole process. Meeting about the cover, which was not, there's 13 people on the cover, or 12 people on the cover. That's not necessarily 1 through 12. It's, you want to mix up impact of guys who have, are those top guys, but also some of the newer guys who people will recognize if they're walking by the magazine in a Walmart or an airport or something like that. Pulling the photos is all Susan and Lester. Susan's our managing editor. Lester's our art director. who do an amazing job choosing the photos. You know, a couple of editorial meetings about what the photos are going to look like. You know, if a guy's a shooter, you want to make sure you get him shooting. If a guy's a dribbler, you want to make sure you get him dribbling. And we're not perfect on that stuff, but we try our best. Some of the photos are hard to track down. Getty doesn't have them. They're all the way back.
High res.
Guy from the 60s. Where do you know,
crazy.
Local newspaper, can they get us a photographer, that kind of thing.
Well, even from our era, not that we were ever photographed as much as these guys, but it's hard to find, you know, we do the stuff, like I mentioned, Wes, we do his foundation and stuff, and we use his pictures a lot for just different stuff that we put out in the community.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's like, no, you forget that not everybody had cell phone cameras.
That was a different
cell phones,
time.
period.
Totally.
But cell phones with cameras on them.
Different time.
You don't have all that many pictures of you playing in high school and college just because it was a different era.
But I'll show you the video.
But we do have a mixtape.
We have a very grainy mixtape.
Shot on a
Is
calculator.
it PRC? Is it for sure PRC?
Still questionable. Still
And
questionable.
then my last question on this is: do you guys have a blown up cover that I can fit in my luggage to take off the end of the way home?
No, I don't think
for
we have a
this?
blown up cover, period.
Can you
We
have
can
a
have
blown?
it made. Yeah. I
can get
know,
you one.
It's on
I
tape
know a
now.
guy. He's on like 73rd Street. He'll 48 hours. He'll get it to you.
Point me in that direction, brother. All right, so kind of wrapping up on the slam stuff, and I appreciate you guys taking time to do that. And I wanted to kind of switch gears and get into the 5-star stuff real quick, more with Carl and PRC. But Adam, obviously, feel free to jump in on this stuff too. So you want to give a brief, just rundown history of it, PRC with Howard and starting in 1966, and just kind of take us through it just a little bit, just brief.
Absolutely. I'll give you the Twitter version. So 5-Star was founded in the summer of '66 by two basketball junkies, Howard Garfinkel, who was a scout at the time, and a gentleman named Will Klein, who was a high school principal and basketball coach in northern Manhattan. And they thought, two junkies, we don't have a name, a brand name presence. We need somebody to help us create an all-basketball camp. And so a gentleman named Roy Rubin, who at the time was a legendary New York City coach, who ended up, the unfortunate part of Roy Rubin, he became the losingest coach in NBA history with the Philadelphia 76ers. He didn't last long. But it was called the Roy Rubin Basketball School in 1966. And the whole idea was to have some fun in the sun in upstate New York. Kids can get away from New York City, come upstate, work on your game for a week, and get better. But what they didn't realize was there was a gentleman there who was on the coaching staff by the name of Hubie Brown, who was a high school coach from Fair Lawn, New Jersey, who saved the camp. They had only 24 applications 1 month before the start of this camp, which was not enough to kind of cover the cost to run this. And Hubie Brown recruited every kid up and down New Jersey and sent a full stack of applications in a manila envelope to Garf and saved the camp overnight. Second story is the head coach of Duke University at the time, Vic Bubis, could not make it. He was supposed to be the guest lecturer. So he sent his young assistant by the name of, who's the coach of the Detroit Pistons? I'm blanking on his name back then. Chuck Daly. Yeah. Chuck Daly comes and lectures at the very first basketball camp up there, stays the whole week. And so you have these two Hall of Famers on staff, like an 8-person staff came on. That's like a quarter of your staff became Hall of Famers. 3 of the guys from that first session became NBA players. And so from the very first summer, it was just like this atmosphere of coaches wanting to get better at teaching the game and players up there also wanting to improve their skills. And so they fed off of each other. And so through the late 60s, early 70s, it became this destination camp where if you wanted to improve your game, you had to go to 5-Star. But ultimately, 2, if you wanted to be seen by college scouts, you had to go to 5-Star. So this institution was born.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because my lead into that was going to be: do you have any good 5-star stories? And you just kind of knocked out some crazy one. But can you tell?
I'll give you a better one.
Okay, go. I'm not going to interrupt you. Go.
July 1980. Roy Williams then was the third assistant at University of North Carolina, and the third assistant at that time was a part-time coach. They had a guy who came to their camp from Wilmington, North Carolina. He went by the name of Mike Jordan, and he completely impressed the coaching staff, including Dean Smith. And they're like, "Yo, is this guy real? Is he legit?" But he's playing against the local campers, all came from like little neighborhoods around North Carolina. So he calls Tom Konchalski, who was a big-time scout at the time, who worked at 5-Star, and he says, "Tom, I want to test drive this kid, Mike Jordan, see if he's any good. Can you squeeze him into your Pittsburgh 2 session?" He's like, I'm sorry, we're already booked. He goes, what I can do is I can get him into pit 3 and 4. And he could be a camper worker, so he can bus tables, he can serve bug juice to the kids, and we'll give him 2 weeks for the price of 1. So Mike Jordan shows up to camp, Pittsburgh. This is Robert Morris College in Carapolis, Pennsylvania, which is like an outskirt of Pittsburgh. And a gentleman named Brendan Malone, who was at the time a Syracuse basketball assistant coach. On the first night of 5-star camp, they have a draft. Everyone is playing tryouts, shirts and skins. There's no numbers on the back. So every time someone does something semi-impressive, the coaches are yelling from the sideline, kid, what's your name? So Brendan Malone's wife, the day before camp starts, gets in a motor scooter accident. And Brendan is late to camp, and so he can't draft his team on the first night. And so he says, Tom, by proxy, I need you to draft my team. And this is what I want you to do. Point guards are always first in the draft, or guards, I should say, and second was bigs. And so he goes, I want you to draft Aubrey Sherrod first as my guard. He ended up going to Wichita State. He had a great career. And as my big, I want Greg Dreiling, who had an NBA career. He was a big white stiff, but, yeah, right. Was a big-time player in high school.
You could use those guys back then.
Oh, absolutely. 7-footers that hung around the paint, block shots, were just a presence.
Right.
So Brendan Malone shows up to camp on day 2. His wife's out of the hospital, sees Tom Konchowski. Did you follow the orders? And he hands him over the roster. And the first name on the roster is Mike Jordan. And the famous, and Tom saw him and drafted him first because he just was never seen anything like this before. Garf called him a one-possession player. Basically, just watching him through one possession, you knew he had something special. He had that gift. And at the time, it was his elevation on his jump shot, the fluidity of his jump shot. And the classic quote, I'll end it with this, is that Brendan Malone looks at Konchowski and goes, who the F is Mike Jordan? And then went from unknown, unranked kid from Wilmington, North Carolina, shot up to the number 2 kid in that class behind Patrick Ewing.
Yeah, he was, as I was doing some research on 5-star, just with our partnership and then for this podcast too, there's a great Jordan quote that he basically, I'll botch it, but he says something along the lines of 5 stars what gave me my shot.
Yeah, he uses the word as the turning point of my life.
There you go.
It was that pivotal moment, again, not knowing who he was, shows up to this camp, absolutely dominates week 1, makes the All-Star game, to being a nationally ranked player. Garf had to call Street and Smith. This is in the print era, too. Street and Smith was ready to publish their top 100 seniors list, and Garf calls the guy and says, listen, where do you have Mike Jordan ranked? It's like, who? He's not on the list. He's like, if you publish that list without Mike Jordan in number 1, 2, or 3, your whole list is a joke.
Crazy.
And it was too late. It went to print.
So I have 2 rules on the HVS podcast, and number 1 is we can't go an entire podcast without mentioning Bobby Knight.
Yep.
And number 2, we can't go an entire podcast without mentioning Ray Allen.
Yep.
I know that Bob Knight had a role in 5-star. And I've already said Ray Allen's name, so we're good with Ray.
Yep.
Unless you guys got something for him. But tell me about...
Did not go to 5-star.
Tell me about Knight's role in 5-star with how he set up the camp. I always thought that was super interesting.
Yeah, it coincides, too. Like I mentioned, the first initial name for 5-star was the Roy Rubin Basketball School. Him and Garf had an immediate falling out. Their personalities clashed from day 1. So 2 years later, 1968... it goes from a green and white Roy Rubin Basketball School to 5-star basketball camp. And the 5-star name was born out of his rankings. Like, if you were a 5-star player, that's how he ranked kids. 5-star kid was a high major impact player at a high major school. And so he needed someone to be the head coach of that week's camp. And there was a young man at the time named Bob Knight, who was then the head coach of West Point. At Army. And Bob Knight agreed to work that week of camp as the head coach for $50 for the entire week. And so he shows up to camp on day 1, and Bob Knight, being Bob Knight, looks at Garf. He goes, well, what do you guys do for stations? He goes, huh? What do you mean? We're in the boonies. There's no train stations around here. He goes, no, I'm talking about teaching stations. Like, how do you teach kids the game? That's what this whole thing's about. And he goes, I don't know. You tell me. And so Bob Knight invented at that time the concept of teaching stations, which are basically rotational stations where you learn each aspect of the game: dribbling, shooting,
still used
defense.
today. It's just a
Used
prototypical
today.
Basketball camp. You show up, you're doing stations
in
at all levels.
1968, that wasn't the case. Like, basketball, first of all, 5-star was the first basketball-specific camp. There were a lot of sports camps where basketball was a key component, But 5-Star was the first that just fully concentrated on basketball from start to finish, morning to night. And Bob Knight brought teaching stations to 5-Star in ‑68. $50, the biggest steal of all time.
That's our guy, man. That is our guy. Carl, I'm going to throw it over to you real quick because the 5-Star is back in kind of a big way, and you guys did something really cool last year. And you can be more specific on the details, but we were able to help you guys out and donate the 5-Star shirts for you guys to do the outdoor camp. No worries on that. Can you kind of give us the background of how that got set up and why you guys did that, and if there's anything more like that you guys have coming down the pipe?
Yeah, I think it's two things, and why we did that outdoor camp here in Manhattan this past fall. The first is obviously camps are different now. We were talking about this earlier, where 5-Star was known to be outdoors, and there was this grittiness to it, and this concrete in the sun type of feel to it, and that doesn't really exist today. And although like AAU, travel ball, that kind of whole circuit took away from what 5-Star was as a recruiting center, as a coaching center, we want to stay true to what 5-Star was, and part of that is giving it the the values that were taught at 5-Star, but also the look and feel, the setting of it. So I forget if it was PRC or Matt Aronson, another guy over at JDS Sports. Somebody had the idea, we got to go back outdoors, and we started looking at Manhattan parks, and East River Park down on the East River over there. It was beautiful, and it was a beautiful day in September, probably 60 degrees out. We had like 25 kids there, and it looked and felt like a 5-Star camp, the way it should be. And the other part to that is, although 5-Star looks different now, there's so much power in basketball. There's so much power in the history of the 5-Star it's built, that when we're kicking the tires on, what do we want to do with this iconic brand? One of the things is we want to get back. We want to use 5-Star and basketball to do good. And the other idea came up. Let's have this be a give back clinic where the kids don't have to pay to be here. We have supporters like you guys who are donating apparel. Coach Tobin Anderson, our camp director, came down, drove into the city, and hosted the camp. He's a great teacher. And just all around, it was a great day. And going forward, that's definitely the kind of stuff that we want to continue to do.
So you hit on a couple things that I want to revisit kind of with the group. And Adam and Carl, you guys are younger than me in PRC. But we can put that dad strength on you out there on the court. Do kids play outside? Did you guys play on playgrounds growing up?
I did, but not that often. And I have to say, I just moved up here to Manhattan, and been here since September. And I live right below Houston Street, if anybody knows where that is. And the Christie courts are right there. These outdoor courts. There's probably like 5 of them in a row. And one of the first things I noticed when I was checking out my new neighborhood and getting acclimated was, man, these courts are buzzing. Like, there's just packed with dudes waiting to get on the court. It's 5 courts full of kids. And I loved that. Like, that was that. I spend a lot of my time when the days are nice.
Like, I'm sold. Do you need a roommate?
Yeah. Sounds great, doesn't it? Sounds great, right? Yeah.
Sure.
I went out and bought my new shoes. I was like, this is perfect.
Because I go around now to my old childhood parks, and they're dead. Adam,
Really?
do you have a thought on that?
I think it's like there's 2 answers to that. I think on an elite level, and I don't even mean like elite, but people who really play, it hasn't gone anywhere, right? So even from what you're referencing is like, dudes and girls who really play over the weekends or after work, but they've been doing it their whole life and they love the game. Those people are still out and about. And then on an even more elite level, Dyckman Park, as an example, in New York City over the summer is buzzing. If you go to West 4th on the right night, it's crazy. There's people all on the sidewalk and all that. You go to Gersh Park out in Brooklyn, it's popping over the summer. That scene hasn't gone anywhere. I think if you were to ask about kids and if they're going outside at the same clip, if video games are taking eating into some of that outside time, if being on your phone in the digital age is eating into some of that outside time, I don't know for sure, because I don't have kids that are 5, 6, 7 years
Right.
old. But it would be hard to argue that the answer is not yes, that's taking a hit,
Right.
because everyone you ask that has 8-year-old kids or 10-year-old kids or 12-year-old kids, they're like, damn, I can't get this kid off their phone or off their
Right.
video games or
Scary
so
shit,
it's taken a hit, but I don't think that the street game or the outside game or any of that on a high level is going anywhere.
So and I'll throw this to you, PRC, because you haven't got to chime in yet. But do you think with the lack or what you were saying, if that young generation's not growing up and not playing on the playgrounds, do you think the regional game just changes to where it's like, if I saw you play in 99, I would probably know that you were from this area up here, right? And if you saw me play in 99, you probably would know that I was probably down in the Midwest somewhere.
For sure. Especially after I met Shamgod, you would know. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I would have got Shamgod for sure. Like, I would have never stood a chance. Like, what the hell was that? But, you know, I think our identity on that stuff, to me anyways, and you can disagree with this, came from where we were geographically and came from the playgrounds. So the playgrounds have a certain style of play based on your region of where you're at. Thoughts?
That's accurate. It's fact. And in fact, in New York City, it gets very granular. Back then, if you were from Brooklyn, you played a certain way versus Queens, a kid from the Bronx. They just had different games just because the courts were different. Like, when you play at West 4th, they call it the cage for a reason. There's no real out-of-bounds line. The fence is the out-of-bounds line. And the court is shrunken down. And so you had to have a crafty handle to even create any kind of space. And so you naturally tended to have a better handle than the kid from a different borough. Brooklyn had the better shooters. Queens had these tough-bred kids that just ooze grittiness. That was just their game. So even on like a borough level, to your point, regionally, you knew where a kid was from just by the type of their game. That was actually a fact back then.
Right.
And just to cap it off to the earlier question, the culture's changed. Back then, to improve your game, you played pickup. Like, that was part of the process of getting better because that allowed you to play up, right?
Now it's all AAU.
And now it's all AAU and personal trainers.
And that personal trainer stuff is crazy.
It's a whole nother podcast.
It is. It is. Is that your way of saying, like, let's wrap this up?
No. We could go all night on this thing. But no, that's what it was. If you wanted to play against better kids, you did that through pickup basketball. Now you do it by playing it. When you're 15, you play 17 and under AAU.
So that's a perfect lead-in, and I appreciate the lead-in, the unknowing lead-in. But the question I kind of wanted to end it on was kind of has to do with that. Because the game has become so AAU and summer-driven and indoor and personal trainer and stuff, what holes do you see in kids' games that are coming out of, let's say, New York now as opposed to New York Felipe years, Shamgod years, PRC years? Is there something missing from their games because of the way that they train that they would pick up at the playground, maybe outside of just grit? If that makes sense.
No, absolutely. There's two things. There's a culture of too many games, right? When you play on travel basketball teams, you're playing a weekend of 5 games. So whatever bad habits you have going into it, you're just cementing those bad habits.
Over and over and over again.
And not to boost 5-star, the biggest problem when 5-star got marginalized by sneaker money, like the sneaker culture coming into amateur basketball and flooding this thing with money, and 5-star had to compete with free marketing events. The biggest damage and collateral damage to that was that you didn't go away to camps to learn how to play the game anymore, right? The teaching stopped. And then in 1991, the NCAA changed their rules where Division I coaches were not allowed to lecture at or work at camps that were non-institutional. And so the game's best teachers were taken away from teaching the kids how to play the game the right way. So there's been a lot of damage to that. And so it's just too many games. And we see this now. It's like, it's not how many years you've been in the league, it's how many miles you have on your body. And that starts at the grassroots system where you're just playing game after game after game. And so, yeah, there is an impact there.
I feel like we could do a whole pod on youth sports philosophies.
Yep.
Because I have a lot of opinions on that too, and just how young things get started in that machine that is youth sports. That billion-dollar business that is youth sports now is crazy. But I want to end it by saying thank you guys. Like, literally, thank you guys so much for inviting us here, for letting us come down, for letting us be a part of the 5-star stuff, for paying extra fast compared to some of our other vendors.
You're going to get me in trouble.
But no, just honestly taking time out of your day to come down and chop it up and let us feel somewhat important here in this whole little basketball culture thing. We can't thank you guys enough. So
No, of course.
Yeah, thanks for
Anytime.
coming out. This is fun.
all right.
Thank you for making the best 5-star T-shirts.
Yeah, there's the plug. There's the plug.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to the 19.9 podcast with HVS, the High Volume Shooters. For more information, check out the blog at 199.com under HVS. And while you're there, do yourself a favor and pick up some retro college shorts. Till next time.